actually. I'm just going to do that, and so we're all here. Okay, so we're going to get started today. This is we've got a lot to talk about today. This is not any advice from any of us. These are personal views, personal opinions. Many of us own the investment or have investments in the companies that we're going to be talking about, but this is not a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any security. Okay, so now that we're done with that, let's dive in here. I'd love to talk. We have a lot to talk about, but I just would love to, as we often do, get a rundown of the market from Mike. A lot going on. Give us an update.
Yeah, it's been a real tug of war between the a whole host of skeptics, but even those who believe in the AI-driven future, or a lot of angst about sort of what that displaces, and then on the other hand, even those building that future about whether there'll ever be a return on capex. So latter part of last week, after the Game Souk on Thursday, and the early part of this week, we saw the ongoing sell-off, which we've been talking about a lot in SaaS and software, but also joined by some of the hyperscalers and the capex providers and this sort of thing. That has, I'm going to say, somewhere between slowed and paused. That doesn't necessarily mean it will reverse, but we've seen some stabilization. And part of that came because last night we had NVIDIA's earnings, which are really just almost a pornographic display of cash flow, just cash everywhere, right? Their margins are just unbelievable. They produced 120 billion in profits, not revenue, and that tap just keeps flowing, right? Mm-hmm. That being said, it's sort of expected, and as a counterbalance to that, we did have Salesforce earnings, which look increasingly like financial engineering and Mark Benioff hand waving, where a lot of their profits actually came from their or the improvement came from Informatica, and they just don't have a great answer for what the for how they're integrating, not for agents and that sort of thing, but for the system of record in the future, and what the angst about displacement will look like there. All that being said, the price action and a lot of this stuff has improved. The night before, Workday had reported and sold off hard and then got bought throughout the day. We may see something similar for Salesforce. And so there's a lot of folks sort of checking for oversold conditions, certainly in software. And to the extent, as we've also talked about, that crypto at this point is correlated, very correlated to software, we're starting to see a bottom. Tentatively speaking, we're starting to see stabilization in the price action there. As Angie said earlier, that's not advice, and I'm not waving my hand saying, oh, that's a bottom, but it's getting a little bit better. The other thing to watch for prospectively tomorrow, sort of in AI, it's market sensitive, but in AI more broadly, is there's been this I don't know, let's call it again, tug of war between Anthropic and the Pentagon, and specifically Pete Hegseth and Dario Modi, where they set a tomorrow deadline for Anthropic to basically facilitate access to the full suite of Claude without restrictions for, among other things, human-in-the-loop surveillance and human-in-the-loop sort of automated weapons design and automation, which are the places where Anthropic has drawn a line. It seems pretty clear to me anyway that Anthropic is not going to change its kind of red lines on this. And so the Pentagon will either disqualify them by labeling them a supply chain risk, or invoke the Defense Production Act for the first time since early COVID to prompt access. And I expect this will go to court, but those will be a big set of headlines tomorrow, one way or another. So yeah, that's what's up in sort of the intersection of AI and crypto and gaming and markets for the week.
Can I just ask a follow-up on these Q&A session? At the end of the earnings conference call, is the focus AI disruption that has hit all of these stocks?
In which?
In the enterprise software stocks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But they're only, it's very difficult to ask existential questions on a quarterly earnings call.
Yeah.
Which is sort of part of the problem. Right?
Yeah. I just wondered, given how hard these stocks have gotten hit, if people are actually, is it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, some of it. I mean, look, there aren't great answers. This is we're hunting boogeymen at this point, and the rifles, as it were, are not being provided by SaaS software
yep, that makes a
in
lot
that
of
hunt.
sense. Yep, it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's go to age rage, because we've been talking about this week after week. Age verification is a big theme across platforms. Roblox has been crucified for all of their, child and trust and safety issues around children. And it turns out, as Andros has been tracking every week, this is a challenge that plagues all platforms on the internet, anything touching social media. And so we've been kind of following this as we go. And Discord this week gave an update after they announced the age verification process and received a huge amount of backlash. And the CTO co-founder Stan V put out a really good blog post just saying, here's what we got wrong. And I'll read a couple of lines. He said, in hindsight, we should have provided more detail about our intentions and how the process works. The way this landed, many of you walked away thinking we were requiring face scans and ID uploads from everyone just to use Discord. That's not what is happening. But the fact that so many people believe it is tells us that we failed at our most basic job, clearly explaining what we're doing and why. That's on us. So stay tuned. They're going to come out in 2020, second half of 2026, and they're also going to give us transparency into the vendors that they were evaluating. So I think that's really great. One of the speaking of vendors, one of the technologies that we've always been big believers in is, one of the like kind of key applications that we thought blockchain could be useful for is age verification through zero knowledge proofs, or ZK proofs. And so that's something that we dug up this week, and we're doing some more research on this because basically the way it works is that once a user has obtained a credentialed age proof from a provider, he or she is able to generate a ZK proof, which demonstrates their age without disclosing any private information or PII. So that's one to watch. We also, had a tweet from Tim Sweeney, which was really interesting. People commented that they were surprised he had a positive tweet about Apple and what they're doing with respect to age verification. So I'm going to show that slide and here, and Keshav, do you want to dig into this for us?
Yeah, sure. So I'm pretty sure that no one had Tim Sweeney complimenting Apple on their bingo card. This is 2026. But it was definitely fun to see that, and this just shows you that he's not just going after these big techs as malice. He respects if there is something good that's being done by them. So this tweet is basically referring to an article which was in December, when the Apple CEO Tim Cook was spotted in Washington D.C., and he was meeting with lawmakers to push back against proposed App Store age policy, which according to Apple was the not protecting user privacy. Apple also at the time had said, if turned into law, the App Store Accountability Act would legally make Apple responsible for age verification. And Apple's position at the time, or since then, has been, instead of Apple, it should be the parents responsible for setting age guidelines on child accounts. Apple also said that it wanted the legislation to avoid suggesting that companies must collect highly sensitive documents about minors. And I think that is the whole conversation right now, especially given it erupted after this Claude's announcement. And I think that's what Tim Sweeney is appreciating here, that it shouldn't be about collecting these documents, and the way to do it should be the parents setting the parents to provide a child's age when setting up an account. And it says any age assurance measure should focus on confirming that the adult establishing the account is actually an adult. So I think Tim was appreciating this, and as a follow-up to this tweet, he also goes into their own platform. That's the Kids Web Services. Do you want to do you want to talk about the kids' web services, Angie, and how
I
it
mean,
works?
I can just give a one-liner on it. I think, what we like about it is similarly, it is parent first. So it basically offers it goes to the source. The parents verify their children, and then they grant them permission basically to use these applications that collect personal information. And so
Also,
it avoids this kind of leaky bucket of privacy that, a lot of these vendors have, frankly. The other thing that we really love about Epic is, as usual, it's free to developers to use, and it's being used by EA, Blue Sky, Bungie, Intersloth, 2K. There's a very long list, Niantic. So anyway, yeah, we like.
another important point to highlight here, Angie, is that this isn't app specific. So all these partners that Angie just mentioned for kids web services, the parents just have to do the verification once, and then very similar to the blockchain technology that we're discussing right now on ZK Proofs, this creates an ID, a one-time verification ID for your kid, and then that ID is what is called by these partners to verify your age on their platform instead of doing it every single time.
Yep. Yep, it's a good point. I mean, there are going to be a lot of different solutions here. I was surprised to see Apple pop up, frankly,
Mm.
because there are so many specific privacy age verification solutions that all of these platforms are kind of vetting, and I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I mean, I'm actually slightly taking the other side. As it relates to age verification, and it relates to in particular, the gaming ecosystem where this is most relevant. I hear you on is Apple really the right provider? But the way I view it is that age is probably the most sensitive, but nonetheless, just one aspect of broader identity verification, digital identity verification. And I think Apple and Google are sort of the natural, as it were, gatekeepers for that. And that's I'll say that's with a sort of a private enterprise take on who should be providing this. The alternative, of course, is governments, and that's going to be sloppy and harder to coordinate and everything else. But the reason I say it's a broader identity, concept is a very big topic right now is personhood verification and agentic identification as opposed to human identification, and who is gating that in various different places. And Apple is certainly leaning into that problem. And that, when you think about conceptually the Apple Wallet and authentication systems and everything else, it is actually very similar technology. Privacy is one issue, but security is the bigger question. And Google is doing similar work here. And so I do think I'm very sympathetic to Tim Sweeney's take on not just who's the best provider for what is ultimately a ubiquitous solution for everything that we do, and who's the ultimate gatekeeper, but as it relates to a whole bunch of other identity questions that are, perhaps not as sensitive to as age is in a social media context, in a gaming context, etc. But for a bunch of other things that are, perhaps have a lot more capitalized dollars behind them, i.e. the agentic economy as opposed to as it were, human digital economy. This is also a huge question. So I really do believe that Apple and Google are going to eventually lead the charge. And if they're leading the charge on identity broadly, might as well have age as a feature.
Yeah. It's a really good point. And Xandra, you've been talking to us a lot about these different options, and we'll share screen, but love for you to chime in here. Also, by the way, everyone, we're writing a report on this topic, so stay tuned. So I'm going to
I think that's important with this Apple side and Apple being in charge of it is the context from the government and why they're proposing these bills is that they believe that the app store should be held responsible the same way a brick and mortar store is. So their argument is, as a 15-year-old goes in to buy a 6-pack of beer at a bodega, the person that's held responsible isn't Bud Light. It's the bodega owner who sold the beer to the 15-year-old. And the argument from the bill, the co-author of the bill, is that these app stores, and broadly speaking, digital stores, are the ones that should be responsible, not the developers themselves. I think it's just important context of where this bill is founded, and that's I actually think it's a pretty good argument from my side, is that the developers those shouldn't have to do everything, and it shouldn't be an individualized process of how am I going to verify my age on each platform. And if Apple or Google takes it over and it's just this one easy process, I think it's less risk of data leaks than every single platform having their own process towards age verification.
I wonder if this will point back negatively to Roblox again, because they're using Persona.
Right. Which is then leads into Persona, which is an age verification vendor, which has become under fire over the last week as researchers have tweeted about different data breaches that they've identified. It is worth noting that a lot of these problems that Persona has, identified by these researchers, the Persona CEO has come out and said that they are not true. Especially after Discord distanced themselves Persona publicly in their latest blog post. The CEO took to Twitter to say that it believed a lot of the accusations from Discord were false, and that actually Persona does not collect your data, does not keep your data for its own use, and does not give your data to the US government, which was a big problem that these researchers were finding. They were saying that they were working for ICE, which he has completely said is not true. But because of that, there's another reason that Discord has pushed its release of age verification to the second half of 2026, is to distance itself from this company and offer more vendor transparency, which is why I think we believe KWS is a really good vendor for this, especially because it's grounded in transparency and parent-first verification.
Yeah. I mean, the Persona just couldn't get away from the drama and controversy this week. It was like Peter Thiel backed it. We're going to, Roblox uses it. Reddit was fined $20 million, right, by the UK.
Right. Which is just the latest in the UK's. The UK previous to this fined Media Lab for also not protecting kids and collecting data. So the big fines are coming from not verifying age in these kids and then proceeding to collect data. So that is what the UK ICO found that Reddit was doing. So Reddit was still allowing under 13-year-old users to use the platform and requiring them to just simply say that they're over 18. Like they weren't actually checking.
Self-identifying their age.
Self-identify, right. So as a 13-year-old that wants to go on Reddit, I'm easily just going to click yes that I'm over 18. I mean, that's what I did for most games when I was a kid. And the ICO says that this is a failure to protect children's privacy because Reddit then continued to collect data on these children without permission, and have been hit with almost a $20 million fine because of it. And the ICO is also investigating TikTok for similar practices and has been since last year. And Media Lab was the latest before Reddit to be fined for collecting under 13-year-old data on one of their platforms.
Interesting.
So the UK is very serious with this.
We should go to our resident in the UK, James. Not that you need to be an expert on this because you're in the UK, but tell us your thoughts on this. I know you have a lot of thoughts on this before we go to Roblox.
Yeah, I think what we were just talking about with the App Store doing it, I think that would honestly, like the bodega thing was actually a really good example. And I was like, that could work. I think the UK is like incredibly strict anyway. I know you guys over the other side like to joke that we don't have like freedom of speech anymore. And I used to think that, wasn't necessarily serious, but maybe we are going that way with like how strict we are becoming. But the age verification thing, I think, from a Roblox standpoint, they just keep turning into PR drama. They're trying to do the right thing by doing age verification. I think, a lot of people will agree that trying to protect kids is probably the best way, is trying to do their age. And then they go and, work with Persona that have their own PR dramas. So Roblox are just very good at finding drama, I think.
They really do. It's we always say it's opposite day sometimes in Roblox,
Yeah.
and yeah. Well, let's go on to last weekend. James and I were texting on a Saturday morning about how exciting the weekend was for Roblox. I'm going to share my screen because I was pretty blown away with your analysis of what was happening last weekend. Do you want to go ahead and explain this? Can you guys see it?
Yeah, we can see, yeah. So this chart shows the 4 games that are in white are from the Steam concurrent charts, and these are like the top 3 played games on Steam. And then all the ones in green are the top 10 from Roblox. And basically, Angie and I were having a look, and only 3 games in the top 10 of Steam would make it into the top 10 on Roblox. We found that like incredibly interesting. There's a few different like reasons for it. So obviously the biggest difference is the team size is completely different. You know, Valve has been going for CS has been around for like 25 years now in some form of another. 1.6, CSGO, CS2, all that type of stuff. Dota, PUBG, you know, huge teams. And then, you know, on the other hand, you have Jiu-Jitsu Shenanigans, which is there at number 11 at 383,000, which is a solo developer, which is incredible. I know Z really well, and he is an insane human being. But to be competing with companies that, you know, are probably 200-300 staff strong is incredible. And I think it really goes to show and back up what Matt Ball was saying in his report recently about, you know, traditional gaming is shrinking and UGC is really exploding. Some of the, I think, you know, key differences here though is the free games from Steam probably, I'm gonna just make a guess here, probably make more than all of the top 10 combined on Roblox. I mean, CS probably does just alone off of their skin market, or at least close to. Like the money they make will be dwarfing it, and that is because Steam is, you know, PC only, and you know Roblox is predominantly mobile, and so PC players typically have more expendable money, and so they're making more money. But then, you know, on the flip side, engagement wise, people are spending more time on Roblox because it's not just a game, it is a social platform where people like engage and they do other things. And so I think, you know, right now, Steam are obviously making a lot more money than what Roblox is. But I think once Roblox can really capitalize on how do we get ads to work, that is essentially how they're going to monetize you know, these players. How can they get it to work well? Because they're trying it in a lot of different ways at the moment and nothing's really sticking. Once they figure that out, I think, you know, Roblox is just going to explode in terms of revenue. But they're struggling right now. I think we've seen that over the last couple of years. When it comes to ads, there's nothing very impressive there. Everything else is engagement, how many people are coming to the platform every day, how much it's growing. But the thing that's really lacking for them is ads.
Yeah. And it's last week we talked about the fact that 88% of brand activations, according to the Geek report, took place on Roblox and Fortnite. And there's just so much even more upside when you do a ranking of CPMs across all of these platforms, including, you know, TV, the Super Bowl, whatever. It's Roblox is at the bottom in terms of price, you know, by orders of magnitude. I mean, it's on a CPM basis, we're talking sometimes, you know, less than $1.
Yeah. And I think the issue that Roblox has is they are not the ones in control of that. It is
That's a good point.
very, very much like agencies, external agencies. You have studios such as GameFam bringing in GameFam, like this year alone, brought in Lego. They brought in Barbie. You know, a couple of like Lego's like a huge one, and Roblox didn't get a cut of that because that has gone, you know, via a third party. And so until they, you know, basically lean in and either have an agency or some form of central place that a brand can go and say, I want to be on Roblox, and they go to Roblox directly, they're not going to be able to, you know, match it. They're missing out on a lot of revenue because of third parties.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so let's change topics here. We'll go to transmedia. Eliza picked up a pretty interesting data point this week. Go ahead, Eliza.
Yes, Backrooms, which some of you may know and a lot of you may not know, which is actually a YouTube-born creepypasta type of phenomenon. Started with liminal spaces, and the creator started to create like shorts and videos on YouTube. Is coming to the movie theaters May 29th by A24. So this is A24's latest horror piece. They have a trailer out. It actually looks really amazing. And if you followed any of that Backrooms phenomenon, which I did through my kid, I was really excited to see it, being a fan of horror and of UGC creators making it into the mainstream. Because ultimately, I think what was really exciting to see this week is sort of maybe a bit of a shift since the Matthew Ball review or report, is that even GamesBeat also brought up how Roblox was transitioning into movie spaces, with several Roblox games having been optioned into movies. Now, that aside, I'm not sure that going into movies is the best option for the Roblox space, considering, I would say the trends, the life cycles, and the type of long-term, commitment it takes to get to screen. That being said, IP is being born here, with like huge cultural relevance, in that it is something everybody is tracking or discussing, and there's a lot of opportunity. So I'm excited to see this. What definitely feels like a very forward moving momentum of this kind of, catching fire.
I mean, one of the things that you've been a big proponent of, though, is this shorter form content matching shorter form development cycles on Roblox, right?
Yes.
Because the thing that we're concerned about is this movie is going to come out in a few years and people are going to be like, what?
I mean, you're at the, like, even if you were fast tracked, you would be at the minimum of a whole year in development. In majority of time, it's going to be 4 years. That's like the average. So that's just, and then I don't think it's meeting people where the audience is at. The flywheel is YouTube Roblox. And I just think fundamentally these things are shifting. And what I'm keeping an eye on is a thing like, for instance, that Mike brought up a while ago, which is the micro dramas that are, exploding in the Chinese market, that this sort of direct to consumer app type content space in tandem to just even more, should I say, build out the brand and build longevity, build content, build stories, build even stronger relevance, is going to be the future of entertainment.
Yeah. Speaking of entertainment, Mike, give us an update. There was a resurfacing of drama around Warner, Netflix, Paramount. What is the latest?
Yeah, earlier this week, really on Monday, Paramount came back to the battle, as it were, for Warner Brothers with a raised bid, and improved their some of their assurances, basically, around the debt financing there, and also, as this is sort of one of several parts of the political angle of this deal, which is pretty robust. Is Paramount represented that their deal had been cleared, meaning that there was no second request from the antitrust authorities, in this case, the DOJ. As a reminder to folks, the person who ran the division of the DOJ that would be responsible for this basically resigned, reportedly in protest for the sort of top-down directive to clear this deal and favor Paramount. And also, in simultaneous with this, Trump, I guess this was a truth, but in any case, demanded that Netflix fire Susan Rice from its board. So there's a fair amount of tampering going on here. We've known that from the start. But at the same time, Paramount put another foot forward, and Warner Brothers has said that their now raised bid is likely to be a superior offer. There's also quite a bit of prognostication as to whether Netflix will raise its bid or compete or whatever, with a whole bunch of people saying, you know what, they're better off just walking away and letting Paramount have it, because
Mhm.
whoever gets it at this point is overpaying for the asset. And then in Hollywood, to the point on sort of the, you know, the media production side of things, their battle lines are being drawn as to who the better owner is. Those who favor big studio releases and theaters and that sort of thing, James Cameron is sort of the face of that, seem to favor Paramount winning here because they are theatrically oriented. And on the other hand, I would go so far as to say just about everybody else, including if they have any brains at all, like SAG-AFTRA and everybody
Anyone
else who
with a
represents
brain.
union. Well, anyone who represents unions should want Netflix to win, because the only way that Paramount, if and when they close this deal, can pay for it is by firing a lot of people. They're going to be wildly overlevered, and you should assume that the bigger adopter of AI in creative pursuits between the two eventual owners would be Paramount, because they have to save money. Whereas Netflix is obviously well heeled. The market is telling Netflix, like, hey, don't bid, because its stock is up 7% since having been down 30, by the way, but it's retrenching a little bit from Paramount's putting the better foot forward. Anecdotally, I actually think both sides at this point are kind of resigned to not winning this asset, which takes a little bit of wind out of the sails of ego and other things that tend to drive these things into, you know, kind of stratospheric bidding heights. But that being said, you know, this is going to have to resolve itself within the next month, because the vote for the Netflix deal is out there. So Warner Brothers is going to have to either switch its recommendation or not in the coming, let's call it 1 to 2 weeks. But it's also possible that a shadow bid stays out there for quite some time. So it's you know, the next month is going to be pretty important for this drama, but it doesn't necessarily get resolved in March.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, well, I think with that, we're going to wrap. We didn't mention Pokemon 30th anniversary tomorrow, which is exciting. I've been reading about all sorts of library parties in Texas and Illinois and New York City, card auctions. Tomorrow's going to be a pretty active day all over the world to celebrate Pokemon. So we were going to be Pokemon characters, Eliza, but then we decided that the age verification was more important.
That's right.
Even though we do love Pikachu.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe we should do it in honor next week instead. Sort of after the fact.
After the fact.
Aged Pokemons.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, good. Well, everyone have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will see you on the Game Souk next week for number 40, right? Good.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye.